Thank you so much for the invitation from the CFAS committee. It's such a pleasure to be back here in Quebec. It's been precisely 20 years since my very first invited talk that happened to be here in Quebec as well. And so much has changed in those 20 years. Back then, we were coaching in cleavage stage. There was no time lapse. Forget about AI and robotics. So the way that we're practicing embryology from now to last time I was in Quebec was very different, but the old town looks the same. So we already had our maple syrup this morning, we're good to go. So I am a clinical embryologist at the end of the day, and I started as an academic, so I'm all about asking questions and trying to improve and trying to break the dogmas of what is the traditional way of us treating our patients. But on top of that, for the last 10 years, I've been helping companies perfect AI to get to the stage where it's robust enough for us to incorporate into clinical practice. And we needed that to happen so that eventually 2 years ago, we were able to found Avenues, which was the first clinic to be able to use AI every step of the journey. So if any of you are in London, next Estuary is in London, please come and visit. We would love to have it as an example to help you see how you can incorporate this into your clinic. I'm also the chair of the AI Fertility Society. When we meet every 2 years, the last meeting was in Croatia, and we get the leaders of the world on AI and fertility to sit down and troubleshoot together. Outside, they are competitors, but in this conference, we are together trying to figure out the challenges of how to make these tools even more robust to our patients. The next meeting, and you're all invited, and we specifically picked a date that did not clash with the CFAS, so you're more than welcome to come and join us. We'll be in Portugal in 2026 in September. And in this time, the terminology of AI has also evolved. So last time I came to CFAS to give a talk on AI, I was talking to you about how the artificial intelligence, machine learning, convolutional neural networks, and all the way to deep learning. But since then, there's been the birth of a whole new subsection of AI called foundational models, which then led to large language models, and you all probably commonly know them as ChatGPT, which is one of the many models available out there. And this has completely changed the speed at which we're incorporating AI and has opened a whole new other range of opportunities of how we can, not just in the fertility sector, but in all of the healthcare sector, to change the way that we are doing our care to our patients. Most of them are looking at ways to improve efficiency, but many of them have clinical relevance in terms of reducing clinical mistakes and increasing the personalization. And I love the last question on RCTs, and we will be touching on that, because personalization is now how we should be treating our patients. But LLMs and all of the areas of AI come with all sorts of risks. The risks don't mean that we don't touch these technologies. The risks are there for us to figure out how to mitigate them and how to put strategies in place so that when we're using these tools, we're not just using them blindly. We're using them knowing what their full capabilities truly are. And we need to take on these risks and manage them one by one. And it's not just us as the users in the clinic, it's all those teams and companies who are building the tools for us as well. Because AI hallucinates, there's bias, there's data privacy issues, and there's the explainability aspect, and who the hell takes responsibility when AI makes mistake? Is it the healthcare practitioner or is it the AI tool? Who takes responsibility when we as humans make a mistake as well? So all of this needs to be taken into account, not just because AI needs risk mitigation. Everything we do in healthcare requires risk mitigation. And there's many examples of failures of AI, and a lot of the time, when I come to conferences like this, I sometimes am put in a position where I have to debate somebody who talks about how AI is here to take over our jobs and destroy our way of being. And at the end of the day, AI has a lot of failures. But most of those failures at its heart are human failures. And the humans are the root cause of why these technologies are experiencing that, whether we use the wrong data sets to train the particular algorithm, whether the algorithm is learning from biases of our wrong decisions. An example being, if we don't transfer poor quality embryos, when we pass our data set over to the AI is going to tell us not to transfer poor quality embryos. But those of us who have been brave enough to transfer poor quality embryos will know that ugly embryos make beautiful babies. So this is an example of how AI can be giving us the incorrect advice, but it's not AI's fault, it's a human failure. And AI takes all sorts of shapes and forms in clinical care. Most of us associate AI in healthcare as choosing which embryo we're going to transfer in priority to another. These are the clinical AI tools that are helping us make clinical decisions. But many of the benefits that we must not ignore are the ones that come on an operational basis. Because AI can truly help us reduce the cost of care to the point where we'll be able to treat patients that would not otherwise be able to receive that care. And that is important, especially if you're in public health. So public health AI, where we're using foundational models to try and identify opportunities for efficiencies, means more babies to more people who want them and deserve them. But to be able to mitigate risks, we need to understand how to validate technologies coming into clinical practice. I spent 2 years of my life working with Fertility. Fertility is one of the AI companies out there. And the reason why I joined them is because I wanted to create a framework of how do we validate these technologies. There wasn't a book. Nobody had done this before, so we had to figure it out. And it was really interesting because it's a book which is this thick, by the way, and it involved clinics from all over the world, including some of the clinics here in Canada, where we just systematically went through creating validation frameworks. But we weren't the only ones. So here we have one example of the projects we did where we used something called area under the curve. So area under the curve is a measure of the efficacy of prediction of AI. The higher the number, the closer to 1, the better. And really, we aim to have around 0.8, 0.9. But it's not that we want to have that figure. What we decide if we incorporate this into clinical practice or not is it better than what we do today? Is it better than not using the technology? Because at the end of the day, what's going to bring the best benefits for our patients are the incremental little benefits at every step of the process. So it's not about aiming for a particular AUC, it's really ensuring it's better than what we have today. But in this particular case, we wanted to understand these particular tools, how good are they at predicting blastulation, utilization, implantation, ploidy, even if they weren't built for that purpose. Because this particular algorithm was built for prediction of implantation, right? So, but from a curiosity standpoint, can we incorporate that in clinical practice for the other aspects of biology? So we've done many studies with many clinics, and the AUC is represented by the ROC curve, which is these graphs that you've got, where the AUC is on the bottom corner. And these ROC curves, the bigger that curve, the better it is. And you can see that the prediction of blastulation based on day 0, you have a very shallow curve of an AUC of 0.63. When it gets to prediction of blastulation based on day 3, you now get to 0.91. So by looking at the same prediction at different time points with the same algorithms, you can get different AUCs as well. And then the other way that we can assess it is by those bar graphs. So a lot of these AIs, they will give you scores, low, medium, high. If you're seeing that low, medium, high is giving you the same blastulation rate or live birth rate or ongoing pregnancy rate, whatever is your outputs that you choose, then that has no clinical value for you whatsoever. But if it's doing a steeper graph than what we're currently using, let's say with Gardner grading, then we should be incorporating that in clinical practice. So those are 2 great ways for you to validate and to make sure that this is bringing value to your clinical decision. Another example of another group, this comes from the EV group, they presented at ESHRE. This time they're assessing the AI from sperm, and you can see that there's some relevance with sperm when it comes to blastocyst rate or quality of embryos, but the low scores seem to be doing quite well with the ploidy. The N is small, and there's lots of limitations from that perspective. But the point is, we start understanding that this algorithm does well in some circumstances, in some ranges, but not necessarily in others. Another example now on the clinical side, because I don't know if we're all embryologists, even though that's where my heart is, but let's give something for the doctors too. So the Americans have published quite a few papers where they're looking at if the doctor followed the decision that the AI suggested, what were the number of eggs collected and the PNs and so on. So it's a particular tool that is advising you on the dosage, it's advising you on how you should stimulate this particular patient. And what they found is that the number of eggs and PNs and usable blastocysts was greater if there was a match between what the AI was saying and what the doctor was doing. And where the doctor deviated from that, there was then a reduction in those KPIs. Really nice way to validate the tool and see if it brings value. They did a similar study. Now this time they're looking at using the AI, not using the AI, and then again demonstrating across multiple physicians. Because what you need to bear in mind is that a lot of the time, the AI might not improve on a really experienced physician, but you start seeing benefits when you start introducing less experienced team members. And AI can then potentially be used to scope what if we had more people involved in these clinical decisions because they're empowered by the AI, and can this increase the number of people available and therefore the number of patients that can be treated, increasing your capacity basis. This is a paper that we published a few years ago. It was actually really hard to get this one published because it was a discussion that went against our gut instinct, right? So what we demonstrate in this paper is that you can manipulate the AUC. The AUC is not the best measure of how an AI is doing. And one of the things that we demonstrated was how the AI changed its ability to predict based on different days or hours of development on the embryo development scale. So this particular tool uses two algorithms, one that's looking at the visual morphology, that's a convolutional neural network, that's looking at the image itself. That's your blue line morphology, how the embryo looks, is it pretty or not at the different time points. The other one is the green line, that's looking at what does the morphokinetics, so the timing and pace of development that this embryo has, how is that contributing to the prediction of implantation? And on the red one, on the very top, is the combination of these two. The output of the red and the green algorithms becomes the input of the red one. And here we demonstrated that combination of algorithms can bring huge benefit to the patients, but also that having just a final image in the end is not the complete picture. You need to have a comprehensive understanding of what's happening with the embryo. So tools that are here just ranking embryos and telling us transfer this one first and that one second, they're not really solving a problem. They need to explain why they have given that first and second place. And this is why my preference has always been for tools that are providing this level of explanation. Understand the why of the advice that's being given to you. We did a range of studies like this that summarized what is the efficiency that a tool like this can bring. If you use this tool, we demonstrated that you can increase your capacity of cycles per embryologist by 50%. This tool alone. I'll show you some of the data in our clinic where we're using so many different AI tools and what is our cycle capacity. But these studies are a great way to demonstrate the operational AI elements and how this can make the cost of IVF even lower as much as possible. The way that you do not assess AI, and following on the question that we just had at the end, is using the traditional RCTs. In this particular example, which was published in Nature, what they did was they had as an inclusion criteria, you need to have at least 2 blastocysts. You're then going to split into an arm. One arm, you're going to use AI, and the embryologist will have access to the AI. And in the other arm, they're not going to have access to AI, but they have access to the full time-lapse, and they can make their decision without the use of the AI. So really the question is asking, is the AI improving the embryo? And I can tell you now, the AI and assessing the embryo, looking at an embryo and assessing an embryo, is not going to improve that embryo. And having 2 embryos in each arm is not giving us the opportunity to assess time to pregnancy. On top of that, We have now the situation where in the control arm, AI was never used to assess the efficacy of prediction. So we don't know whether there was a difference in the two arms in terms of chances of pregnancy. You got two embryos. If both these embryos are viable, whether you use the AI or didn't use the AI is not going to make a difference. But if you have another patient where both embryos are not viable, that's also not going to make a difference whether you're using AI. But if you have one viable and one not, there's a 50% chance that we can pick the right one or the wrong one. So AI is not going to show a benefit in success rates in these three situations. But what I want to know as a care provider is which of these three buckets my patient is. Does she have two viable embryos, two non-viable embryos, or one of each? Right? Because that's how I can make my clinical decisions. And the RCTs are not assessing that. It comes down to ask a stupid question, get a stupid answer, and unfortunately leads to a misunderstanding of what AI can bring to our field. On top of all of that, you can see I feel quite strongly about this one, but on top of all of that, we have the situation where the RCT took 2 years, cost millions to run the RCT, and in the 2 years, when they finally published the paper, the algorithm was no longer in use because it had been superseded by a new one. So AI cannot be assessed by RCTs. We need better ways to do the assessments, and the many examples that I put forward are good examples of how to assess the viability and efficacy of the various AI tools. We just submitted an abstract for the British conference that will happen in January. Don't expect you to read the details of the graph, but I asked it from our modeling person who's a mathematician, so this wasn't a very UX designed screen. But the point is that what we looked at, how should we measure success? What is improvement? If it's not per embryo transferred, because we've discussed that from the previous RCT, what is the right measure that we should be ranked by in our national registries, that we should be monitoring our various clinics, that will identify whether we have an issue? Because the challenge that we have is that in the UK, we get ranked publicly. And in the UK, we get ranked based on per embryo transferred. Not per embryo transfer, per embryo transferred. And technologies that help you assess the embryo, whether it's PGT, whether it's AI, will never see a contribution towards that. Because what is the clinical decision that we can make if it's a poor quality embryo? We can turn around and say, in this situation, I think it's worthwhile us not spending your valuable time having 2 transfers. Depending on how poor the prognosis is, we either cancel your transfer, go straight to a new cycle, or we're going to do a double embryo transfer to move because we know your chance of twins is extremely low. So you start making clinical decisions, and it's those interventions that lead to you assessing the clinical relevancy of the information you have. So the way that we measure success to patients is cost to baby, impact to baby, convenience to baby. Now, those are very difficult for us to do a ranking on, but what we believe is the one that has less opportunity for manipulation is cumulative live birth per new patient. So a lot of the strategies that we have incorporated alongside our AI tools in our clinic are multi-cycle packages where there's multiple egg collections leading to one embryo culture that then leads to a single embryo transfer. So these are the types of strategies that fast-track a patient and reduce the time to pregnancy and increase the success rate, especially for patients of advanced maternal age. So those really tricky patients to get pregnant, we should not be thinking on a per embryo transferred basis. This is the wrong way to go about it. Never mind the fact, if you look at the second column of the slide, that these KPIs are not picking up on inefficiencies in the clinic, such as suboptimal stimulations, poor fertilization and blastulation rates, low survivals, discarding viable embryos. Remember the ugly embryos make beautiful babies analogy. These are the sorts of things that a cumulative live birth per new patient would pick up on. So how are we supposed to cope with AI when there are all of these complications? Well, we've got a group together, and we are shortly going to be publishing the Croatia Consensus. So we're putting together frameworks that all of us can use to help us better interrogate these new tools that are coming into the market. So this is our journey. This is how we are using AI. So I'm going to go very briefly through how we do our assessment of the patient to have a better understanding of what's going on with them in an AI-driven way. Going on to choosing the best sperm for every egg, how we use AI during the ICSI, augmented realities also have a room here, better embryo assessments, but ultimately one of the things that we do with AI is we use AI to push the information to the patient in a way that the patients can understand. The patients see everything that we see. They see all of the imagery that the AI is creating for us, so that they are invited and empowered to participate in the discussion to make the decisions about their own care. And we were all over the news, okay? So we were a very young clinic, but we were inundated with invitations. It's been fun, but at some point we had to say, we got to focus now on getting our patients pregnant. So what is a journey? What can it look like? And what are the things I invite you to consider in your clinical practice? Think of where the data comes from. What is the source of the name of the patient? You think it would be the name of the patient, with the patient telling you what their name is by writing on a form, but actually it's what's on their passport that really truly counts. So the last thing you want is the patient writing their name into your system, or your secretary writing what they wrote on a form into the system and mistyping the name of the patient later on. This creates all sorts of mayhem when you're sending bloods for analysis, when you're doing PGTA, when you're doing your witnessing at the various stages of your process. So don't have a human capturing information that should be captured from the source, and don't capture the same data point at multiple stages. Name of the patient comes from their passport. This one comes from WOW Fertility. So why are we doing dictaphones and writing letters and spending time writing notes? Every conversation you're having with a patient should be recorded, and then should be automatically transcribed, and then should be automatically, using large language models, creating actions and booking the relevant appointments. Why are we spending time handing this over to administrator to do, which then leads to mistakes, which leads to patients being lost in between steps of their care? So this means that we have a more complete data capture all the way through, and the patients don't get forgotten. More efficient. What about writing the report to the patient? We have something called the reproductive intelligence review. So here we are using AI to assess the sperm at this stage. They're assessing the sperm, they're assessing the endometrium, they're assessing your AMH level, and all of the data that comes from the patient of how long they've been trying, have they had IVF cycles before, how many eggs were collected, what is their hormone profile, etc., etc. And all of that then gets summarized into a single report that's not written for the likes of us to read. I will put into the report that it's oligostenospermia, and this is what I want you to, the fact that it's mainly tapered. The report comes out with the LLMs in a really gentle way, written with a language that a patient understands, explaining that the shape of the sperm is lower than we expect, the fact that they are a bit pointy, rather than using the word tapered, because they're a bit pointy, this probably suggests a temperature impact, blah, blah, blah. So it explains things to the patients. I'm not going to spend my time writing all of that. I'm just writing in short form. The AI rewrites it in long form. I verify the AI, authorize it gets sent. So beautiful reports are then created, which are customized and personalized to the patient, using very little of my time. We have done a number of publications where we looked at the different inputs of the information of the patient that contributes to us predicting what their chances of success are. In this case, chance of success was number of egg yield. So this is something that is on an ongoing basis, but I'm not satisfied with the number of data points we currently have. And a lot of the AI we're using is all about trying to increase the number of data points available. What are the additional biomarkers that are out there that can help us better understand this patient? These patients are coming to us wearing wearables, and they're already interested in their own health data. We should be incorporating that into our clinical advice. So this is what our semen analysis report looks like. And this is the tool that we use is called SAMI, and it just means that very quickly I'm analyzing every sperm, not the first 200 sperm we see, we're analyzing every sperm in the sample. There's a human there that's overseeing it, and if there's a sperm that's missed, as you can see there's a sperm there in the middle that's missed, we can go in and override, don't forget to track this sperm. But I've now tracked a lot more sperm, having to do a single click to pick up that one sperm that the AI missed, as opposed to having to look at every one. But not just that. I'm not just capturing whether it's progressive or non-progressive, and the WHO guidelines keep changing their mind, whether they went 4 categories, 3 categories, back to 4 categories. At the end of the day, I want to know the speed of that sperm. I want to know how many times that head is shifting from left to right. And I want to start understanding which of these parameters have an association with IUI success, with ovulation induction success, so that we can truly make a decision whether they truly need IVF or not. We keep using these tools of a traditional semen analysis to make a decision on treatment pathway. That's not how the WHO was created. It was created on a population-based assessment of what does 5% of fertile men have in their KPIs of the sperm motility. So there's an opportunity here with AI that we can better understand how to make decisions with more data that cost us less time to capture and less money to the patients. This is a really cool tool, and actually it does make that noise when we're searching for it and realize the noise would come through. But every time it finds a sperm, it puts a square around it and it does a little click, click. Okay? We use this for azoospermic patients. Many azoospermic patients have knocked on our doors. They had already been going through donor sperm treatment. We have brought them back to using their own sperm. And we're using this technology both to assess in the semen sample to see whether we can freeze the sample, but also doing a micro-TZ live, giving live assessment to the doctor whether he needs to go further. But not just that, because the doctor is doing micro-TZ, he's got access to a camera, so he's filming every procedure. We're using that to train where does he need to go next in the future. We don't have that tool yet, but we're already capturing the data sets required to be able to build that tool in the future. But we already have done some assessments to demonstrate that using the AI tool, whether you're a senior or a junior embryologist, really reduces the time of finding the sperm in that sample. And that time is critical because especially when you're live during the procedure, we need to be able to tell them, don't close up yet, you need to go back and you need to get some more. What usually happens in clinics, they take a whole chunk off and let the lab go deal with it. And then we don't have the opportunity to ask for more. Or we end up taking more material than we actually need. Here, we can minimize the injury to the patient, which increases their recovery time and means that they have less impact on their testosterone levels later on. So AI-enabled versus manual, once you start using the AI-enabled, you can't go back. It's kind of like when you start using smartphones. You cannot go back to a life without the smartphones. It becomes our new norm. So this is a really cool project that's actually happening with Conceivable. So how we do most of our sperm preparations is that we will leave a certain amount of time our sperm to swim through whatever barriers, whether it's gradient, Zymot, or so on. And then it captures whatever it captured in that time frame. So we assume that every patient needs 10 minutes. We assume that every patient needs 15 minutes, whatever your protocol is. But here, what they've done is they've created these bridges when they have a camera filming on top of the central drop. And this means that the moment that you have the best 100 sperm hit that central drop, it then cuts the bridges. You leave it any longer, and the poorer quality sperm will dilute your best sperm. You leave it too few time, and you're going to have a difficult ICSI that's going to take a little bit longer because you're going to have to do some searching. So some patients will need 2 minutes, some patients will need 2 hours. But it means we're now customizing the time specific for each patient. It's pretty cool. But you can't do this without robotics and without AI. When we're doing the injection of the sperm, we also should know that we are giving every egg their best possible opportunity by putting in the best sperm in that sample. And that's one of the things that we're doing at the moment. And on top of us capturing the best sperm that we're seeing with the AI, we're also capturing the data associated with the sperm so that we can learn more about which of these KPIs truly matter or not. The egg itself, how it responds to the injection, both from the egg's response and the embryologist technique, and how can we vary our technique to different types of eggs, the more fragile eggs, the less fragile eggs, is one of the things that we are quantifying live during an ICSI. How long was the needle inside the egg? Did the sperm get pulled out, like in this case? Did the egg funnel persist or not? So all of this is quantified. I don't know yet whether this is something good or not. It's a biomarker we're capturing. It's in the data set. Later on, it will get incorporated if AI identifies this as a useful data point. For embryo assessment, what I really like about AI is that it's not just about giving us the ranking. It's about me processing huge amounts of information really quickly. So I have a dashboard, and in a glance, I can see how many greens I've got, how many reds I have, and I can already tell across the board whether all of my embryos in the incubator, and I'll have 50, 60, 70 patients any one time. How do I glance my eye to know, do I have an operational issue in the ratio of greens to reds? So at a glance, I can already get a visibility of that. But also, when we're selecting which embryo to transfer back, it's very easy to identify the top contenders and making it much faster for us to make our determination. And also an ability to us to inquire, why is AI giving me this embryo? This embryo looks so much prettier. Why is it giving me that one? I can click on it and start understanding the raw data that led to that decision. And that's what we get here on the right-hand side. Morphokinetics that I used to spend hours quantifying by manual annotation. I haven't done a manual annotation in 2 years now. We're also looking at additional metrics. Embryos are not two-dimensional as much as they look two-dimensional when you're looking in a time-lapse incubator, but when you start reconstructing, and we've been using AI to rebuild, in this case, the inner cell mass, so that we can look at, are there other ways that we can, from a different perspective? And we were able to I think I've got a slide missing, but we were able to demonstrate that different shapes have different implantation potential, and the efficacy of prediction is much greater than Gardner grading. When we take this two-dimensionality, we did something that we called super focus, where we have 12 focal planes, and I'm trying to predict what is the image in the middle. And we reconstructed that image using AI. We did that in an endless amount of time to the point that we could now recreate the embryo in 3D. But as you can see from here, I can't see inside the cell. I'm just looking at the general cell positioning and how the cells are touching each other. We are able to track each of the cells independently and look at the different sizes and different touch points and the distances from one cell to the other. And we are also able to kind of augmented reality. In this case, it's in the back of my house in England, if anybody wants to come from a walk in the woods. But you can see if you ever needed to provide a more in-depth explanation for a patient of why this blast is not forming, we can give them some explanations based on the biology earlier on. You can do this also in a virtual reality as well. And we have published a few papers where we reclassified the 4-cell embryo depending on the configuration and the positioning of the cells. So I do invite you to have a look on the fact that it does matter if an embryo is tetrahedral or planar, and AI can automatically detect that for us, despite the fact we have so many embryos. In this case, we're tracking the different cell lineages as they're going from the 1-cell, 2-cell, 4-cell, 5-cell, 8-cell, 10-cell. And we, depending on the hours post-insemination of each of those divisions, we can start to better understand the mosaicism that we might be observing. We can also 3D print your embryo. So if you want to hold your embryo, and that's a better way for you to understand what's going on, this particular embryo is a baby today. And you can see how the different cell junctions are different to one another. Okay, so this is a particularly good embryo, which is tetrahedral, as you can see from that 4-cell. But this is why I'm going to tell you not to buy a time-lapse incubator, because there's something new coming. And the name of the new thing is holotomography. This is what the current holotomography looks like. And we have the first one in our clinic. Those of you who are medics, this uses a similar technology to CT scan. So rather than having those two-dimensional pictures that you get from time-lapse, where you have the images from what's happening below or above, creating interference on the image plane that you're looking at, here we are looking at inside each individual cell. So the camera moves around, which allows you to get the precise point of what's happening inside. It's not a reconstruction of 3D, it was captured in 3D. You can see the positioning of each of the sperm on your zona pellucida. This is true 3D imagery at the point of capture, not reconstructed. And the bastards made our previous years of research completely obsolete, because all those super focus work that we had done before is now completely useless. But it's okay, because this is bringing us a lot more data and a lot more information that we can bring to our patients. This is using refractive index, and the newer version that's coming, that will be available in 2027, is going to be 30 by 40 centimeters and will fit on your hood. Okay, so this is coming in a couple of years' time, which is why if you need a time-lapse incubator, I would take some time to reconsider the significant investment given what's coming. So some of the work that we're doing with the holotomography here, you can see a human egg, where we can see the individual organelles. These are not dyes, they're digital dyes based on different refractal indices. You can see the chromosomes in a level of detail that we've never been able to see before. We can see the zona pellucida. Can you click the video on this one from the tech? So you can see the zona pellucida, and you can see the membrane in an unprecedented detail, to the point that you can see the sperm binding in your zona pellucida. There you go, there's a sperm. I think the embryologist saw it. I think the rest missed it. Maybe press play one more time. Keep an eye on the sperm. So this is the new game we're playing as a team. Look for the sperm. Now, I have no idea, because I've never seen these embryos and eggs in this quality before. We have 4 PhD students that we have now incorporated in our team who are going to try and build an understanding of what's going on. But not just that. So here you have a degenerating egg. Do you mind playing these 3 videos as well? So this is a degenerating egg, and you can see the different colors are different organelles. On the bottom right, you can see the red and the blue. So if you play the other 2 videos as well, thank you. So here you have red and blue, and you can see that we switch on the dyes, because the dyes are not physical dyes, they are digital, so we can look at different things at different times. And the top left corner, please, if you don't mind pressing play on that one. This is tracking different types of mitochondria. So it's already identified the different shapes over time, and we can see the movement of the different types of mitochondria over time. This cannot be done without AI. AI is helping us see this, something we could never see without AI. Granted, it needed holotomography to come with it, but still. Here we have endometrial assessment. It's not an endometrial tissue, but I just wanted to show you what's capable. If you don't mind pressing play on this one too. So here, look at the level of detail. So this is our next project where we will be showing you what endometrial cells look like. This is a different tissue, but you can see the nucleus there. Look at the quality of this imagery. Imagine what we could do with the patients that today are classified as us not knowing why they're infertile. It's a third of patients coming to see us. What if we could really, truly identify which are the patients that can benefit from mitochondrial donation and which are the ones who don't need it? Which are the ones that truly should go with egg donation? And which are the ones who need sperm donation, or let's just give it another go? What if we could do all of these assessments, PGTA, embryo, sperm DNA fragmentation, that's the next one, inside your clinic, as opposed to waiting for 2 weeks for the results to come back? What if you could see more than just the DNA fragmentation and get a better understanding of the mitochondrial distribution in there? This opens a whole new area of reproductive care. that didn't exist. And we're playing back with augmented reality, if you don't mind playing the middle video, augmented reality and virtual reality. Here we have the protocols in the clinic being overlaid. This is how we train embryologists at Avenues. They know how to do the dish preparation using the augmented glasses. But these could also be used to deliver the way that we visually see the three-dimensionality coming from holotomography. Imagine what this could do to your patients. So what does this mean in reality? Okay, so bottom line, in our clinic, we have 504 cycles per year per doctor, 501 cycles per year per embryologist, 256 cycles per year per nurse. And this is not just about efficiency. You see that 85% of the doctor's time is patient-facing, 39% of the embryologist's time is patient-facing. In many clinics, that's zero. Okay, so we believe in omotenashi, giving the patient unreasonable hospitality, where we're predicting their needs before they appreciate that the needs exist. And this means that we do not sacrifice efficiency, for the patient, for the service that the patient is receiving. It's very important that they're taken care of. Given the complexity of this information that we're gathering with AI, the face time is extremely important for the patient, so they understand personalized care is not possible with general reports, with general assessments. And our KPIs in terms of clinical pregnancy rates are also very good. So in the bottom left, we're looking at our Vienna consensus, which is what we called other centers here. That's the Vienna consensus KPIs. We exceed all of them. But by exceeding every single step of them, we maximize the chance of having a neuploid embryo. So we calculated this as 59% more than if you were matching Vienna consensus. Our egg survival rates are exceptional because we're using AI during the egg freezing and egg warming process. And I love this statement. This came out in the news last week, and I saw this article. I think it will change science. AI just did in 2 days what researchers took 10 years to find. And this was in reference to finding super drugs and resistance to antibiotics. But this is what we're going to see here with us in fertility as well. AI is going to make a lot of our previous research obsolete, and that's okay, because we're moving at a very fast pace now, and we all need to keep up. So a very big thank you to the team. We have an amazing team at Avenues. I'm very proud of every single one of them. It's a team. We have 3 PhDs in the lab, so almost half the lab has a PhD, because we're all questioning and interrogating everything we do. We are on a constant move of change, where we are not just doing things in a traditional way. So we moved away from quality management systems. We're now using lean management in how we are structuring our treatments. It's not about standardization, it's about individualization. So thank you very much for your time. I don't know if I have time for questions.
Thank you so much, Cristina. I'm going to just find out maybe 1 or 2 questions, and then we'll move on to the next speaker. If they want to come up, speak.
How do you deal with the problem of the requirement of read data for AI? Which most centers don't have enough data.
Yeah, we're only 2 years old, so I always say that we don't have the biggest data set in the world, but we have the largest number of data points that we collect per patient. So the only way that we can solve the big data issue is through collaboration. Hence why we founded both the ASRM Special Interest Group for AI and also the AI Global Fertility Group, so that we can promote a collaborative approach. When I joined Fertility, they mostly had kind of data from a single country. And a lot of the work that we did was going out to clinics and saying, we need the data to make something that will work for all of us. And this meant that very quickly, Fertility got the most complex and dynamic data. It's not about capturing the data from only the best clinics in the world. In fact, you need the data from clinics that practice in very different ways to you, to the point that you're shocked at how they practice, because that's how you learn things, and that's how you break the dogma, and that's how you remove the bias that would otherwise exist. What we don't want, for instance, for FDA approvals, you need to have mostly American data. If all our data sets were purely American, then we're going to have a data set that's going to be, well, mostly biased towards Caucasian, mostly biased towards, which has been a pain in healthcare as a whole over time. So the only solution to big data is collaboration. And this means that sometimes that's in conflict with competition, and sometimes that's in conflict with strategy. And there needs to be societies like CFAS societies, or even at the governmental level, we need to think strategically, how do we bring the most comprehensive data sets so that the good AI tools can be built. But you have hit the nail on the head here. This is the biggest challenge of AI, is that you can't build AI without data. AI is actually much older than reproductive care. The only reason we see it as new is because finally as a field we become organized enough data-wise that we can see some AI tools. But if we were completely organized, we would see even more. And that is one of the things holding AI evolution back. But thank you for your question. That's a great question.
In the lineage tracking experiment, you said that lineage tracking allows you to work out mosaicism. That sort of implies to me you must have a way of counting chromosomes in live cells. How do you do that?
Yeah, so counting the chromosome in live cells, we're doing with holotomography, which is something new for us. Okay, so this is something that is a separate study to the cell lineage, which we published, I think, about 2 years ago. What we're going to be doing next is bringing those two together. But here's another cool thing that I just wanted to touch on. The cell lineage showed us that when cells are far away from each other, the embryo as a whole struggles to get to the blastocyst stage. So with projects like Conceivable, where you have now an ability to use robotics during the care of the embryo, we are looking to see how we can apply that research into robots that can maybe give that embryo a little extra hug, that can cause those cells to touch closer together. It's just a theory, but this is where we're combining AI and robotics, we can sometimes get something more. So cell lineage is definitely, there were separate studies. Not what we were looking was cell lineage evolution and versus mosaicism, which we saw, for instance, if you go direct from 1 to 3 cells in any of the division states. This then led to mosaicism. Okay. Yep. Yeah, and I'd love to see those embryos that can kind of fix themselves, throwing out the garbage to keep the good behind.
This will be the last question.
Okay, sorry.
Very popular my question is on efficiencies and how we're staying on technology. So I'm a neurologist for a lifetime and you're building in the US and engineering technology. And my experience has been over the past couple of years, all of the tech is actually a lack of transformation of and communication technologies to new tech. More that LS is everything's it's been quite inefficient, and we're just information there. So I don't think we're staffing concerns. So my question is that are you including any line numbers, numbers, or guidelines that will start neurologists, the college challenges and animal experiences are data now, well-verifiable papers or studies still about 125 times 50 sessions for your neurologist. Different so we need to elaborate a little bit and explain those how it's possible.
Yeah, so let me highlight a few more things. All our members of the team only work 4-day weeks. They get 3 days off, 4-day weeks. They do work 10-hour days, but it's only 4-day weeks. They also get 30 days annual leave on top of 8 bank holidays. So actually, they only come into the clinic 170 days a year. we're still hitting those numbers. So there's a number of reasons for that. Your administrative roles should not be with the embryologist. And traditionally, embryology gets stumpered with everything from cryostorage management to things which do not require an embryology qualification to perform. The same goes for the nursing. What are the things our nurses are doing that doesn't need a nurse to do? Same for your doctors, right? So those are your limiting factors. You then have a team that supports them. On top of that, the team that's supporting them is using technology. And that technology means that they are performing many more cycles than required before. So look at you need to do an evaluation. The way that we achieved that is we did a lean assessment. We looked at all the workflows. And then we removed you're attending 72 meetings a week. Let's remove those meetings. You now have a capacity of so many meetings with your team a week, okay? Because that was one place that was wasting huge amounts of time. It was not even on the operational aspect of the lab. Then we look at, not meetings like this. We apply, every member of the team goes to 6 conference days a year, okay? Which then brings us to 1,426 hours that they have to apply for cycle management. So in there, we've removed the meetings within your team, the meetings across all the departments, and so on. Okay, so that leaves 1,426. From that, we then categorize how much time are you going to spend in a first consultation? Are you going to need to read to prepare for it, or are you going to use an LLM to summarize what you've got in front of you? Right? Because ask your doctors how long they take to prepare for a consultation. And so on. You keep doing that. If you map out every minute that your team is spending on the different tasks, you'll be able to achieve this as well. But you will need to apply some of these technologies. You won't be able to do it without the tech. But it's not just a technology on its own. It's the ability to get an entire team who understands efficiency and who understands that nobody's going to be overworked. Okay, so if your large groups of clinics apply 500 cycles, but everybody's working 7-day weeks and nobody has time to take care of their babies at home, then that's the wrong approach, okay? So restrict first, this is the time you have available, and now let's see how we can make that work. But I'm more than happy to sit down with you and show our calculations, and that can hopefully help you with your clinic. Thank you.